To Jacksonville we go next, Kieran, where Trevor Lawrence silenced some of his doubters with a 6-touchdown game as the Jags just lit up the Jets.
Yeah, I'm still trying to convince Kieran that the Jags are legit. He's questioning the legitimacy of some of their wins in recent weeks, but I think Lawrence has been heating up. 20-32 last night, 330 yards, accounted for 6 TDs. One of those was a rushing TD himself. Travis Etienne had 3 last night. Etienne, Myers, and BTJ seem to be heating up. I mentioned, I've alluded to the game in Wembley a good few times on the show, and just what we saw in terms of negative body language from the likes of Brian Thomas Jr. That seems to be a thing of the past at the moment, and they seem to be a team that's rolling. And you know, I know, Brian, you were talking about how you mentioned last week that this team can be a team to be reckoned with in the playoffs just because of the nature of the talent that they've got on both sides of the ball. And yeah, they absolutely seem to be one of these teams that's getting hot at the right moment. I think they're going to push. I don't know, they're going to leave the Colts in their wake now themselves, and the Texans coming down the stretch, and it's really, you know, it's looking like the Jags, I think, are the front runner for that division. But they're a team that they're getting dangerous at the right time.
Come a long way since. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, I don't mean to jump in. Everyone has been wondering who's going to take down the Broncos. I think the Jags will take down the Broncos this Sunday in Mile High, because people won't have expected that 4 or 5 weeks ago. We're talking about, would it be the Packers, or would it be another team, or would they lose? I think the Jags are primed to go in and beat them. The Jags are arguably one of the hottest team in the league offensively. 48 points yesterday to Jets. I get it, but they've had great strides offensively over the course of the last few weeks. The run game is really effective, and why not? You mean because no one's expecting.
But I remember when we went to see them play the Bears in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last year, and I was chatting to Kieran Boyle about this. He's obviously close to it. He goes to the Jags games regularly and was there for us a couple of weeks ago when they played the Colts, wasn't it? They have a really talented roster, and they certainly were nowhere near being the sum of their parts last year. Liam Cohen has come in and made a big difference there. There has been a certain question mark over the connection between Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr., and even the connection between Liam Cohen and Lawrence. But it seems to be starting to come right just about the right time. And yeah, they're dangerous down the stretch. I wouldn't necessarily be shocked if they did take down the Broncos, and I wouldn't be shocked if they won a playoff game or two with the way the AFC has opened up. Why not them? They'll certainly be feeling that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was wondering, are we going to come to the Texans? Because you could say, my God, look how hot they're. Like, it's a very interesting division.
They're so hot right now.
Well, it's hot in Texas because that defense is just not lights out down.
And just like Lawrence, so Stroud is kicking into gear now as well. So the quarterbacks are doing their bit. It's not just, you know, you talk.
And they got Woody and Shrub there as well. Don't forget about Woody and Shrub. That stiffens the resolve in the backfield.
Connor, it's a mad one, because we spoke for, glowingly about the Colts for so long over the course of the season that it was all about the Colts for the first half of the season, and the Texans were a write-off. I wouldn't say the Jags were a write-off, but they were inconsistent, and here we are now. We're now going down the stretch where it's all about these two teams. Maybe the Colts have a glimmer of light because of the nature of how he played yesterday. It was really tough for the head coach, but it's kind of unusual the way this division has evolved over the course of the season.
The Bengals certainly don't have a glimmer of light, Kieran. That ended as the Ravens shut them out yesterday, 24-0. And I mean, the big story out of this, and not to overlook the Ravens' victory, and puts the AFC North battle right back onto the map with the Steelers to play the Dolphins tonight. But the story here is whether Joe Burrow and what's going to happen next, because you look at the way he's shaping up at the moment, he looks dejected, and you can hardly blame him. We talked about the level of negligence that's been on display in the Cincinnati front office, wasting the best years of Burrow's career, and not putting a roster around him that, you can win with. And you kind of see this one shaping up as Burrow angling for an exit, and the soft whispers about maybe playing the retirement card, and a lot of people looking at the Andrew Luck comparison and saying there's another guy who had all the talent in the world, found himself in the wrong situation at the wrong time, injuries. It's a very short window. Burrow himself said that the window is open as long as he's there, but will he be there forever?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and he, the one thing you give Joe Burrow a lot of credit. He's extremely candid when he speaks, and I don't think he means to speak in any code or anything like that. He's He's no Aaron Rodgers, we'll put it that way. But, you know, he's come out and clarified or made an attempt to clarify or I suppose, put some rumors to bed or put some uncertainty to bed. And he said that the comments he made last week were entirely in relation to himself and how he's feeling and his mental state, as opposed to any indictment on the Bengals as an organization. And maybe he was, I guess, alluding to the fact that they did they did lock up those receivers that he was so desperate to keep in the off season. But the Bengals just cannot seem to get it right. And now your rumors are circulating. You know what you're seeing on social.
I go back when he talks about locking up those receivers. And I back on this point again. Whatever about Jamar Chase, they should never have given the contract to T. Higgins. They should have used that money elsewhere in the roster. And you're seeing now the consequences of making that decision. And I know, you talk about getting the quarterback's input and that's valuable, but I go back to your Packers when they used to infuriate Aaron Rodgers year in, year out, but they did the right things for the team. Aaron Rodgers wasn't the general manager no more than Joe Burrow is. It doesn't seem like the Bengals have a particularly good general manager. And I wouldn't be listening to players in terms of how you construct a roster because they don't have a clue.
Yeah, and I've mentioned our preseason interview with Mo Egger in Cincinnati, back in the off season, and he was saying the same thing. He didn't see any scenario where they locked up all of the players that they were looking to sign, and Trey Hendrickson being probably one of the more important players on that list, but one of the lesser spoken about players. It was all about Chase and Higgins, and certainly if you accumulated some trade value or cap space by letting one of them go, you might be looking at a different picture this season. But the Joe Burrow situation is intriguing. And we mentioned Carson Palmer in the offseason as well, and what he managed to do by engineering a way out just by giving them no alternative, by threatening to retire. But the way Joe Burrow was talking, you'd wonder, is it closer to an Andrew Luck scenario where he's saying, I'm a really, really level-headed guy. I have plenty of opportunities outside this game, and if I'm not enjoying it, I'm not going to stick around simply for the sake of my livelihood, so to speak. But it did fuel an awful lot of social media speculation as to who would the potential suitors be, and that's a fun one to think about when if you thought about him going to the likes of the Falcons or the Vikings, what he could potentially do. Maybe not the Vikings in the NFC North. Let's keep him out of there. Yeah, maybe the Falcons. Look at the weapons that the Falcons have. No, they don't have they don't have the picks to trade from. That's the only problem. But look, you could put him on any team in the league and he'd make them instantly competitive. Yeah. So we could talk all night about who he could end up with.
Except the Jets, they just break him, and that would be horrible. That's just not what will that into existence. He just needs to remember, as every 30 Rock fan knows, that if you do get into a negotiation, 90% of negotiations are lost by the person who speaks first. Because speaking first is a sign of what?
Weakness.
Fired. Get out.
Desperation. There's not many quarterbacks in the league that have had the run of injuries in which he's had either, Connor. I know, like, we're talking about Mahomes now gone for the season, and I know Lamar's had a number of injuries, but not the enormity why he's had to deal with over since he's gone into the league. So is it any wonder why he looks at this time and time again and says, I'm not even getting to play full seasons under this team, under this regime, because I'm continuously getting crippled by poor offensive line play, and it's probably getting to him. Of course, it's going to get to him mentally. It's difficult.
Let us talk Ravens too for the moment, Brian, because they've
hand over the bread
and they're hand over the well. I wanted to give you your spotlight for that. One of my two favorite plays of the weekend. One was the Jeffrey Simmons touchdown pass and the Titans losing efforts. Love to see the big man grab there. Fair play to him. And the other one was the loaf of bread play, which I will let you describe in your inimitable fashion.
Well, it was interesting that they intercepted the ball, and in that situation, bearing in mind where the game was and the score, the most responsible thing to do as a player in the secondary would have been to go down and take the knee, and the game essentially was dead and buried anyway. But it was more the nature of that Ravens player, and I can't recall his name, who just said,
it's Kyle Van Noy, who's a bigger dude, obviously, and intercepts the ball and decides, like you say, it's quite a risky thing to do, to be fiddling around with the ball when you should just go down and take the field position, and you've won possession back and you've done your job. But fair play to him. He sees a speedier defensive back heading outside him and hands him the loaf of bread to bring home to Mammy.
That's why the Ravens have players. That's sorry, Carol.
Brian, sorry, no, just think of Carson to Lawrence Taylor back in the day. The old the interception and lateral to the speedier linebacker.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm not going to put him at that level of player, but this Kyle Van Noy has been around the league for quite some time. He's why the Ravens have a player like that of that magnitude. Like he's won Super Bowls with the Patriots and stuff. And he, even despite the situation, like we've seen in the past where in a young rookie, inexperienced player catches the ball, he tries to do dynamics with the ball after he gets an interception and the ball gets pumped out. Kyle Van Noy is very much at the level of his career where he knows I ain't returning that down the field for a touchdown, but there is players here who can. So here, you take that Brennan's bread and off you go, and you bring it home to Mammy, as I said on the group last night, because it was a fantastic play. I couldn't stop laughing.
Today's bread today.
It wasn't just that, but he looked like he could have punctured the ball with the grip he had on it before he handed it off as well. One hand or two hands, that was not coming out.
Right, the Grandad Bowl next, where Philip Rivers went down, but he went down swinging, Kieran. He didn't by any means disgrace himself, had one of the slowest scrambles I've ever seen. It looked like he was running through treacle. He fell over, picked up the ball, stumbled a couple of steps, and then got sacked behind the line for a loss. But other than that, he played pretty well.
Yeah, and look, the only thing that I think would have been a disaster here is if what I presume all of us decent people just hope to God didn't happen, which is that he got absolutely creased on the first play, and
all of us middle-aged men were rooting for him. Like, go,
100%.
Rage against the dying of the light. Show the youngsters how it's done.
Even though I had the Seahawks with the handicap, so he didn't do me any favors. But I didn't think they'd keep the game as close as they did, but he certainly didn't disappoint, and he certainly didn't look out of place. I mean, when you look around at some of the quarterback play in the league this year, he came out full of confidence. But as you would expect Philip Rivers to do, he was never going to show any fear, and he was never going to show any, I guess, indecision. Not that Philip Rivers has never thrown a pick in his life or anything like that, but he's got that confidence, and you've listening to his interviews all week, his press conferences, all the dadgummits and all the G's and the darnets and all this kind of stuff. It's just pure American entertainment, and people were absolutely lapping it up. And the Colts kept this game close. I mean, they stayed in it right to the end. I argued last night that maybe this was one of the wins that the Seahawks needed, one of the ones that wasn't your flashier performance. It was a very, very workmanlike performance. 6 field goals. Look, Kieran made the point that 6 field goals isn't going to take you very very far in the playoffs, but you could certainly use it to get you over the line in a regular season game when you're contending for the for the division. I mean, the Rams had some of these horrendously laborsome wins last year as well, and we're not talking about how limited they were. You just have to win in whatever way you can. With the Colts, we've talked about the Colts in how their form has just completely reversed over the course of the season, and we've talked about the quarterback and the injury to Daniel Jones and the drop off in play. But I think a lot of this has to do with the considerable cooling of Jonathan Taylor as well. He just has not been able to get going. Maybe it's the offensive line. I haven't seen them up close enough, but when he hasn't been able to get 100+ yards, when he hasn't been able to get in the end zone, they just cannot get the wins, and can't just put it down to quarterback play. They've seriously cooled off, and as you said, they're a team that were just so far out ahead. I was assuming even 3 weeks ago that they still had enough of a lead to get into the playoffs, even 2 weeks ago, and no, it's just hard to see it now. So it's disappointing for a team that came out at the start of the season with so much emotion after the passing of Jim Irsay. You thought this was going to be something close to a fairy tale season, but it looks like it is going to peter out now at this point.
Brian, from a Seahawks perspective, as Kieran was saying, you'll take the wins anyway they come, and they've racked up 11 of them, so they're not going to be listening to too many of their critics. But it was a bit of a no-show from their offense, and they'll be concerned about how the handcuffs were put on them by a good Colts defense, but certainly not probably up to the caliber of the ones that they're going to be facing in the playoffs. They'll need to show more than that if Sam Darnold is going to convince the doubters that he's the man who can take them deep.
I imagine Seahawks fans kind of will be hoping that's the Sam Darnold game that they want to get out of the way now, like the likes of what we saw at the back end of last season. He looked uncomfortable throughout the course of the night. The Colts defense they didn't get to him enough. You looked at the stats, it doesn't look like his mind-blowing game when he had sack after sack, but he just didn't feel comfortable in the pocket over the course of the game. He was off kilter with some of the throws. And Smith and Jibba had reasonably strong numbers, but they didn't score one touchdown in the game. Maybe Kieran's right. Maybe these are the type of games that the head coach will say, do you know what, we've been putting a number down on these teams. Maybe we need to make sure we're in a position that we can find a way to navigate these victories. for the Colts, don't disrespect the Ben who's part of the team. I wanted the Colts to win because I wanted the fairy tale story for Rivers at the end. But we started the show talking about kickers. Connor,
Ben, for context, is a Seahawks fan and would never have lived it down if the outfit had beaten his team.
He was quite relieved. But we talked about the kickers at the start. Maybe we were talking about the kickers towards the back end of the show because Myers came up big last night with all those kicks. Like that's what you needed a solid kicker for. He was the one who essentially put the game away from him last night.
Finally, Kieran, the sack record, single season sack record, very much under threat as Myles Garrett continues to tear it up. It's incredible to think that he's never actually been the sack leader in the NFL in any of the seasons, for as phenomenal as he's been and as consistent as he's been year in, year out. But he now looks like it's only a matter of a game or two before he takes the record, which is currently held jointly by TJ Watt and Michael Strahan. Asterisk on that one, even though Brian hates it because there was one fraudulent sack given up by Brett Favre in the most disgraceful circumstances, and we should strike that one from the record. But let's not open up that discussion now and let's talk about Myles Garrett, who actually deserves the record.
What's your man's name? Gastineau, is it the guy that confronted Brett Favre, the fellow that played for the Jets that had the record before Strahan? But
if only that was the worst thing Brett Favre had ever done, anyway.
Yeah, look, Myles Garrett certainly didn't get. Look, he came close. What did he have? 1.5 sacks last night, and it feels like it's only a matter of time. So, look, you just, for his sake, you hope he finishes the season fit and healthy, and I think he's going to. I mean, you'd be shocked if he stays upright that if he doesn't get the record. But in terms of sacks, it was the Bears that laid the wood last night. They had five sacks and 7 tackles for loss on Shedeur Sanders. The Bears were in control of this game all the way through. I foolishly allowed myself to create some kind of logic that this might be a trap game for the Bears and pick the Browns. But if the conspiracy theorists are to be believed, when they gave Shedeur Sanders the wrong called wristband, I think in the first quarter, that's the tinfoil hat theory that's going around today. Look, the Browns were done and dusted very early in this game. Some bright moments from Shedeur Sanders, some great throws. Showed that he does have that arm talent, and there could be a future if he gets in the right organization with the right coach. But no, look, we talked about the Packers at the outset of this game. I think
to your point, he had a couple of brilliant throws, and the one the Jalen Johnson interception. There's nothing wrong with what he did on that play. There was another one earlier on where he broke them out of a funk with a beautiful long throw down the field, and there was one really impressive throw where he's actually being tackled. He's about to go down, and he gets the ball out and completes it for a first down. I mean, that the talent there in big spots is very evident. They just don't have enough around him, it seems, to get the most out of him right now.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it remains to be seen where his future will lie. But he's not the worst quarterback in the league by any stretch of the imagination. So you feel like he's deserving.
Not while Riley Leonard and Max Brosmer are still above ground.
Absolutely. And what was the other rookie who acquitted himself well enough last night? Brady Cook, wasn't it?
Brady Cook. Let Brady Cook.
Yeah. Absolutely. A good night for him and his family. His family seemed to enjoy that experience, so it was nice for him. But
his family celebrating a touchdown when they're down by 20 odd points. Like, it's just like, okay, we get it. Okay.
Listen, if we would have been celebrating Charlie Smith if he was kicking the ball over the bar last night, 20 points down as well. So
I don't mind the family celebrating, but just to air one of the grievances that regularly comes up in the WhatsApp group, Jets players celebrating sacks, you're down 20 points, lads. Like, that's ridiculous. Don't be a pick-me. Get back in there and do your job.
I'm gone off topic. Apologies, lads. But just go look on the other side. Caleb Williams, another really clean game from him. 242 yards, but he had another plus 100 passer rating, 112.5 passer rating. So he has really steadied his own ship, I think, as the season has gone on. And I wasn't on with you last week to dissect the Packers, the Packers game against the Bears, but they will have been very disappointed not to come away with the win. I think just like the Broncos, I think they took the momentum from the Packers last week in the second half, and I think that if there was another 2-3 minutes in that game, I think they would have won it. And they firmly have control of this NFC North now. I know the Packers get a chance to come back and take it back next weekend. We'll see what they're made of. But
we really will, won't we? Like for both teams. I mean, It sets up even better than the Lambeau matchup at this stage, because the Packers now, if they can win this one, they're really in the catbird seat, because the Bears have to go to San Francisco and then they have to play Detroit. Packers have the easier run in and then would have the head-to-head as well. But it's a big gut check now after what happened at the weekend. It's a long flight back, and it's not a great scenario to be in. So it's a lot resting on the players and on the coaching staff to rally themselves.
And not to be unambitious, but a win for either of these teams this weekend might very well put the Lions in the rearview mirror and just get them that bit more comfortable within the even just to achieve a playoff position, even if you can't get that wrap up the win in the division. So but I think going back to the Bears, I think they'll feel that they've every confidence in themselves now to go and take the North, and why not? As I said, that the Packers have to pick themselves up, but the Bears are a confident team playing with a lot of momentum at the moment, and even though they let their win streak fall last week, I don't think they'll feel that they've lost much of a step in that race. They know that they have a few punches to throw yet.
Just to close out on Garrett, Brian, because he deserves it. You've seen some great rushes in your time. You were there in the Lawrence Taylor heyday in New York. I was listening to Joe Thomas, the former Browns lineman, talking about playing the best pass rushers that he'd face, and he did actually get to play with Brown for a while, so he got to go against him in practice. And he was saying he's never seen a pass rusher with that kind of athleticism and with the bend. So what he meant by that is, he said Myles Garrett can put his foot in the ground at a 30-degree angle and still not lose momentum. He said he's never seen a player turn the corner that fast. And this is a guy who runs 4.5. If you're a receiver and you're running 4.5, you're pretty quick. He's like a monster. It's like driving an articulated lorry at 120 miles an hour. He's phenomenal.
He is phenomenal, and don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic player, and I hope he gets the record. And he's tongue-in-cheek about Michael Strahan, kind of, but it also frustrates me that, with all due respect to Browns fans out there, that he's playing with the Browns, because we're only a year removed from when he was looking for a trade. Then all of a sudden he got paid, and he was talking about, the organization have spoke to me about what the strategy and the plan is moving forward around the draft and everything like that. And has anything really materialized? I mean, are we anyway better off to where they were last year? Yes, so he's going to have all the records, but ultimately, players' record is how many rings you have, unless you don't want to be in that position where you're winning Lombardies. But he kind of alluded to last year that he did. So it's as great as it is, at the end of the season, he'll have the record, and it's inevitable now. He said he's going to get it within next week or the week thereafter. He's still going to be playing for teams that are struggling badly, and we'll be selecting in the top 5 of the draft again. So it's a bit frustrating for me that a player that has so much talent could be playing Hutchinson with the Lions. I know it's a different dynamic. He comes into the league later, but that's what I want to see. I want to see Myles Garrett playing on a team that where he does the damage, and it really kind of, the damage, results in them going to the championship game, go to the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl, and we get to see it firsthand. But unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to see that right now until inevitably at some stage he moves on from the Browns.
I think you're right. He's made his bed, and he's going to line it. He may line it with the sack record, but I'm sure he'd much rather at the end of his career that he had a couple of rings, or at least one ring, to send him into his retirement. We'll retire for the night. AV Club is back on Wednesday, and we're back previewing both the Thursday night football game and all the rest of the Week 16 slate when we're live again on Thursday night. Thanks to everyone for tuning in or for listening back to us on the podcast after the fact on the Irish NFL Show.